Imagine a quiet boy who barely spoke until he was almost 3 years old. Some teachers thought he was slow, yet this same boy would one day change how the whole world understands time, space, and light itself. His name was Albert Einstein. But this is not only the story of a genius. It is also the story of a gentle man who gave the world its most powerful idea, and then carried a deep regret for the rest of his life. Albert Einstein was born on the 14th of March, 1879, in Ulm, a small city in southern Germany. His family was Jewish, warm, and completely ordinary. No one imagined what this child would become. As a baby, Albert was slow to speak. He thought carefully before saying anything, choosing each word with strange patience. His parents worried. But inside that silent little head, a powerful mind was already forming. When Albert was about 5, he was sick in bed. His father gave him a small compass to play with. The boy stared at the needle. No matter how he turned it, it always pointed the same way. Something invisible was moving that needle. Albert could not see it, touch it, or explain it. But he could feel that the world was full of hidden forces, secrets waiting to be understood. He never forgot that feeling. Albert grew up in Munich, where his family had moved for business. At school, the lessons were strict. Students had to memorize facts and repeat them exactly. Questions were not welcome. Obedience was everything. Albert hated it. He did not want to memorize, he wanted to understand. He asked, "Why?" again and again, until his teachers grew angry. To them, this quiet boy seemed difficult, even disrespectful. But away from school, Albert came alive. His mother, who loved music, taught him the violin, and on his own he devoured books on mathematics and science, discovering ideas far beyond his years. He fell in love with geometry, with numbers, with the beautiful logic hidden inside the universe. Nobody forced him. He learned because he was hungry to know. That hunger would never leave him. Then, when Albert was 15, everything changed. His father's business failed. The family packed their lives and moved to Italy, hoping for a fresh start. But Albert was left behind in Munich to finish school. Alone and unhappy, Albert felt trapped. The strict school crushed him. So he made a bold decision. He left. Without finishing, he crossed the Alps to join his family in the warm Italian sun. In Italy, Albert felt free at last. He walked through the countryside, visited cities, and thought for hours about light, space, and time. His mind wandered wherever it wished, and he was happy. But he could not drift forever. Albert needed an education and a future. He set his eyes on a famous school in Switzerland, the Polytechnic in Zurich, where science and engineering were taught. At just 16, he took the entrance exam. He was younger than the other students, and he failed the general subjects like languages and history. But in mathematics and physics, his results were brilliant. The school saw his talent. They told him to finish his schooling first in the friendly Swiss town of Aarau. There, for the first time, Albert found teachers who encouraged questions instead of punishing them. Albert flourished. He imagined a strange question that would haunt him for years. What would happen if you could chase a beam of light and ride beside it? That simple thought would one day reshape physics. In 1896, Albert entered the Polytechnic in Zurich to study physics. He was clever but stubborn. He often skipped lectures, preferring to study the newest ideas alone, sometimes annoying his professors. There he met a fellow physics student named Mileva Maric. She was serious, brilliant, and one of the very few women studying science. They shared ideas, long conversations, and slowly they fell in love. Albert graduated in 1900, full of ideas and confidence. He was certain a university would hire him as a teacher or researcher. Surely someone would recognize his gift. But he was wrong. Door after door closed. His independent spirit had annoyed his professors, and none would recommend him. For 2 long years, Albert searched for work, tutoring students and taking small jobs just to survive. It was a hard, humbling time. The brilliant student who dreamed of the stars was struggling to pay his rent. But he never stopped thinking. In his mind, the great questions of physics kept turning. Finally, in 1902, a friend helped him find a job, not at a university, but at the patent office in the city of Bern, Switzerland. Albert became a clerk, reviewing other people's inventions. Every day he sat at a desk, reading descriptions of machines and gadgets. It was steady work, and it paid the bills, but it left his powerful mind free to wander during the quiet hours. Between documents, Albert daydreamed about light, about moving trains, about clocks and time itself. His desk in that little office became the secret birthplace of some of the greatest ideas in history. Then came 1905, a year so extraordinary that scientists now call it his miracle year. In just a few months, this unknown clerk published 4 papers that would change science forever. In his first great paper, Albert studied light. He suggested that light does not flow only as a smooth wave, but also travels in tiny packets of energy, like a stream of tiny particles. This bold idea helped explain how light can knock electrons out of metal. It also opened the door to a strange new world called quantum physics. Years later, it would earn him the Nobel Prize. In another paper, Albert explained the tiny jittery movement of particles floating in liquid. His work gave powerful proof that atoms, far too small to see, are truly real. Many scientists had still doubted this. But his most famous idea of all was still to come. Albert asked a simple, daring question. What if time and space are not fixed and absolute, but can actually stretch and change? This became his theory of special relativity. It said that the speed of light is always the same for everyone, but time and distance are not. For a fast-moving traveler, time itself slows down. It sounded impossible. How could time be different for different people? Yet Albert's mathematics was flawless. The universe, it seemed, was far stranger and more beautiful than anyone had imagined. From this theory came a short equation that would become the most famous in the world. E equals mc squared. Energy equals mass times the speed of light multiplied by itself. It revealed a stunning truth. Mass and energy are 2 forms of the same thing. Even a tiny amount of matter holds an enormous hidden store of energy. This idea would later change the world, for better and for worse. In 1905, almost no one noticed.
A humble patent clerk had quietly rewritten the rules of the universe from his desk. His papers sat in journals, waiting for the world to catch up with him. Slowly, the greatest scientists in Europe began to read his work. They were amazed. Universities that had once rejected Albert now competed to hire him. At last, the world was listening. Albert became a professor, moving between cities and famous institutions. But he was not satisfied. His theory had one great gap. It did not yet explain gravity, the force that holds the entire universe together. For 10 years, Albert wrestled with this problem. He filled notebooks with equations, made mistakes, and started again. It was the hardest work of his life, pushing his mind to its absolute limits. Finally, in 1915, he succeeded. He revealed his masterpiece, the general theory of relativity. It offered a completely new way to understand gravity, not as a simple pull, but as something far deeper. Albert imagined space and time woven together into a single invisible fabric. Heavy objects, like the sun, bend this fabric. And that bending, he said, is what we feel as gravity.
It was a breathtaking idea. Planets orbit the sun not because of a mysterious force, but because they follow the curves in bent space itself. The cosmos was a landscape of hills and valleys made of space and time. But a beautiful theory is not enough. It must be tested. Albert made a daring prediction. If he was right, the sun's gravity should bend the light of distant stars passing near it. There was only one way to see this. During a total solar eclipse, when the moon hides the sun, astronomers could photograph the stars around it and measure whether their light had truly bent. In 1919, an expedition traveled far to observe an eclipse. The world held its breath. When the measurements were checked, the starlight had bent, exactly as Albert had predicted. He was right. The news exploded across the globe. Newspapers printed his face on their front pages. Overnight, the quiet patent clerk became the most famous scientist on Earth, a living symbol of human genius. Crowds gathered to see him. People who understood nothing of his equations still cheered his name. Albert, once ignored and rejected, was now celebrated everywhere he went. Fame had found him completely. In 1921, Albert was awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics. Interestingly, it was given not for relativity, but for his earlier work on light and the photoelectric effect. Still, the honor sealed his legend. Through the 1920s, Albert was more than a scientist. He was a worldwide celebrity, traveling, giving lectures, and meeting leaders. His wild hair and gentle smile became known on every continent. But while Albert was celebrated abroad, a shadow was falling over his homeland. In Germany, a dangerous movement was rising, a party built on hatred, especially hatred of Jewish people. As a Jewish scientist and a lover of peace, Albert became a target. His ideas were attacked, his books were threatened, and his life was no longer safe. Germany was becoming a place of fear. In 1933, while Albert was abroad, that party took full power. He knew he could never return home. With a heavy heart, he gave up his country and began a new life far across the ocean. Albert settled in Princeton, a peaceful town in the United States. There he found a safe home, a quiet office, and time to think. But the troubles of the world would soon reach even him. By 1939, war was coming to Europe again. Scientists made a frightening discovery. The hidden energy inside atoms could be released as a weapon of terrible power, and an enemy nation might build it first. Fellow scientists came to Albert deeply afraid. Because he was the most trusted voice in science, they asked him to warn the American president. Reluctantly, Albert agreed to sign a now famous letter. The letter warned the president that an atomic bomb was possible and that America should act. It helped set in motion a vast secret project, one that would build the most destructive weapon ever created. Albert himself never worked on the bomb, but in 1945, atomic weapons were dropped on 2 cities. Hundreds of thousands of people died. The world had entered a terrifying new age. For Albert, the news was crushing. The gentle man who loved peace felt responsible for helping open this door. Later, he called that letter the one great mistake of his life. He spent his final years fighting for peace. He warned against nuclear weapons, spoke for human kindness, and begged the nations of the world to choose understanding over destruction. He also kept searching for one last dream, a single theory to unite all the forces of nature. He worked on it until the very end, but the answer stayed just beyond his reach. Albert Einstein died in 1955. He left behind a universe transformed by his imagination, and a powerful reminder that great knowledge must always be guided by wisdom, kindness, and care. Thank you for listening to this story of Albert Einstein. If you enjoyed it, listen again with the subtitles and repeat the sentences out loud. It is one of the best ways to improve your English. If this story helped you, please leave a like and subscribe. A new story is coming in just a few days. See you in the next one.